Go ahead.
I'm getting a slide first. I need to get us on YouTube. This one, unfortunately, good. All right, we're good. Sorry about that.
One moment. All right. Pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Welcome to the Frederick County Delegation meeting. Just a point of order for our members. There's some important dates coming up that everyone should be aware of. So Monday is the Senate bill introductory drop date, meaning that on the Senate side for any delegation bills, those bills have to be dropped off at the clerk's office by Monday. On the House side, that date is next week, and I believe the bills have to be dropped off the clerk's office by 5 p.m. on Thursday and read across the desk, I believe, on Friday, the 9th, which is the House bill introductory date. There's also some deadlines for legislative bond initiatives, so just make sure for the members that you're following those dates. Otherwise, your bills and bonds go to rules, and there's no guarantee they come out of rules. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started with the meeting. The first item of business is the Frederick County Consolidated Transportation Priorities. This is a discussion. All of you received a 40-page document that highlights our transportation priorities. As I understand it, the county executive is going to briefly just go over some of those priorities. This generally is a letter that is signed by both the delegation and the county executive once all of us have reviewed it and discussed it. But if the Madam County Executive is here and she would like to just present just the priority portion of it, we can start there.
Thank you very much, Chair Pippi. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate being able to join you this morning. I will be very brief because I know you all previously received our transportation priorities letter, as well as the attachment that goes into more detail about all of our transportation priorities. I'm just going to do a couple of high-level bullet points. And I did want to point out that we do have Mark Mishler, our transportation planner, here as well, if there are any technical questions that anybody has. So we actually had a draft of this based on the CTP tour that, as I'm sure is no surprise to you, we have revised since some of the changes with transportation budget have come out. So you will see that it is our top priority is very loud and clear with getting the construction funding for Route 15 back into the CTP. We have been, as I know all of you are, bringing this up as much as possible through every avenue that we can. And really making sure that people understand that this is not simply an expansion project, which is how the state is talking about it, but it truly is a safety project, as we all know. And so we made sure to also include some of the safety data and really highlighting that on page 1 of the CTP letter. Moving on to some of our other priorities, these are quite similar to what you have seen in the past. We have the additional I-70 phase that is also a top priority, along with Maryland 194 and the second 2 phases of the 85, the Maryland 85 project, along with asking for preliminary planning funding for the southern portion of US 15 from 464 to 340. We always make sure to include our transit as part of our priorities. So you can see an additional rationale for the Transit Plus needs that the county is seeing, as well as looking to enhance our urban and rural service, specifically talking about our senior population as well as our ALICE population. The next section talks about commuter bus and MARC train. We have priorities in there, especially with the expansion of the Frederick and the MARC station, as well as the Monocacy and Brunswick lines. And the last section you'll see includes looking for more funding for bikeways and sidewalks, which we're always looking for from the state, but specifically also putting Liberty Town sidewalks in as a priority. That for all of you in D4, you know some of the safety concerns that have been brought up by the Civic Association there and others, and we wanted to make sure to highlight that. We also have a section in here about Maryland 75 corridor. We know that this continues to be a concern for many of our residents, and we see an opportunity to work with MDOT on some planning for that to help move some of that along a little bit and look at some of the challenges, especially with some of the growth in the New Market and Urbana areas. Lastly is just a little bit on I-270. As you know, there's still a lot up in the air about how the future of that project, but making sure that we are advocating for the part of 270 that most impacts our residents. There is much more detail on all of these priorities and others in the attachment. And as I said, our transportation planner, just gave you a big promotion there, Mark, sorry, is here if there are any technical questions. I did also want to mention that we have already presented this letter to the Transportation Services Advisory Council with the county for concurrence, as well as the county council that provided input and has concurred with the letter. And we met earlier this week with all of the mayors and burgesses of our municipalities to incorporate their feedback. So the draft that you see before you includes all of the feedback that we received from all of those entities. And with that, I can answer any questions you may have, or if you have any technical questions for Mr. Mishler, I'm sure he'll be able to answer those for you as well. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Delegate Fair, go ahead, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning. And good morning, Madam County Executive. I just want to underscore one point for my colleagues in your letter. It's buried in that last point, and I would love if you would like to speak on it at all, but you speak very strongly against the idea of putting in a reversible lane on 270 and the damage and the harm that that could potentially do as an alternative. We are actually hearing that here in Annapolis as an alternative pathway that they would like to bring forward to be able to fund part of this project. Can you speak to the reason why you were opposed to that?
Sure. Mark Mishler here. I take that one for you, County Executive.
Thank you so much, Mark.
And relatively simply, we are opposed to reversible lane as the only option. Without, if the proposal would include other transit components that would make that a viable solution, we would support it and we would be in favor of something like that. But strictly just a reversible lane option, it shows restricting the ability to have growth along the I-270 corridor in Frederick in 2030, 2035 out years, just with our regular growth and development. So if it's just the only option, we're not in support. But if there are other multimodal options, transit options that are included as part of that, then you would have support from Frederick County on that.
Thank you so much for that clarity.
Sure.
All right. Any other questions or brief comments from the delegation on this? Obviously, I think we're probably going to take up another week to kind of go through this and come to a consensus as a group, before we concur with the county. But so I'm not seeing any other questions or concerns. The other thing I'm going to say is, one priority of mine, or two priorities, is I want to make sure the language reflecting the 15 from 70 Monocacy Boulevard is the language matches our priority, and it's reflected how important that project is. And then also the Liberty Town sidewalks. I know that Rick Ludwig is probably watching. We want to make sure that the language is strong enough to accomplish what that community has been seeking from us for a long time. So we'll be looking at that very closely. And if there are any modifications to those areas, we'll make sure we get a draft over to the county executive and her team so that we can get this letter moving forward. So any other thing? If not, we're gonna move on. So County Executive, thank you for being here. Appreciate your partnership on this, and our office will be in touch with you soon, and look forward to working with you further.
Great. Thank you all so much. Really appreciate your partnership on this.
All right. So the next item on the agenda is the Hartley House Capital Funding Letter of Support, which each of you have gotten a copy of. Just for some historical perspective, last year there was legislation that would have adjusted the marriage license fee to provide some additional funding for that organization. The delegation chose not to move forward with that legislation for different reasons, but one of the concessions was that we would find another way to support them. And this is a letter that would do just that. If there aren't any questions or concerns about the letter, I would be happy to entertain a motion on this letter of support from the delegation.
So moved.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the letter.
All right, so it looks like I got a motion from Senator Folden to approve. Delegate Fair, do you want to change yours to a second?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay,
Thank you.
and a second from Delegate Fair. Any discussion? There is a motion on the table to approve the letter that was submitted. There's a second. What we'll do is we can do it by acclamation. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Congratulations. Thank you for bringing this forward, Delegate Fair. We will get that letter signed and out to the parties today. So good job there. Moving on, there's a bill, I think Delegate Miller brought this forward. It's a school construction master plan work group. Delegate Miller, if you want to just very briefly describe what this bill does.
Yeah, so after our last meeting, we were able to send to drafting, which you guys should have all received, some of the language that will reflect the priority of Frederick County. I worked with Paul Lebo at FCPS, President Karen Yoho at the Board of Ed. I spoke with the county executive at length when she was here for Frederick Day, and the county council president, as well as several of their members, to make sure everyone was comfortable with the language. It is imperative. We had two additions. That one was on, if you see number 6 on the legislation that we sent, was that there will be a representative from the IAC on the work group, which will be to prioritize the state's input. And that was, again, a suggestion from Paul Lebo, and we do have the IAC has confirmed that that is a goal of theirs, and that they're fine with being on the work group. And then the others is you see 1, 2, and 3. What we really want to do with this work group is to elevate the school construction needs of Frederick County. And that is reflected in the new language about exploring solutions for, we have probably 4 new high schools that we're going to need to be funding, the Career and Tech Center, all of our renovation and construction needs. So we're going to need to work together to figure out how we're going to fund these schools for Frederick County. So that's the reflective language that I sent. That's what was sent to drafting. So if anyone has any questions.
Does, okay, Senator Lewis Young, go ahead.
Thanks. So this bill probably come to my committee. So I can anticipate some of the questions that will be asked.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the first questions will be, what problem is this trying to fix? So in Frederick County, we have a group, the School Construction Planning Department, that has a rather complex methodology for school funding. And in fact, in the letter you saw this morning from Karen Yoho, the IAC has ranked Frederick County #1 in terms of our methodology, our plans for school construction maintenance. So it's really highly respected. We don't have a process problem. We do have a funding problem. And I'm concerned that this duplicates what we have already, and then it asks the Board of Ed staff to provide support So we're stretching their resources for what I perceive as a redundant exercise. Also, this bill is based on a Prince George's County bill. And I had ample opportunity to speak with the author of that bill, Senator Pep, or Senator Rosa Pep. And what we discovered is that Frederick's situation is totally different. Prince George's County has a very different process for building schools. They don't forward fund. Rosa Pep's bill was meant to address an issue that's never been faced by FCPS. We could be in a position of having to return funds to the IAC because construction projects were not in the pipeline. No, they were in that position, actually. So I'm concerned that the legislation that this was built upon is very irrelevant to our situation, and that what we have here is a solution in search of a problem.
Okay, respect. Go ahead.
Thank you, Senator Lewis Young. Well, 1 second, Delegate Miller. Is there any other comments on this legislation? Okay,
Yeah,
go ahead,
Delegate
Miller.
Pepe. Delegate Weibel.
Sorry, Delegate Weibel. Go ahead, sir.
I'm sorry, I'm having just a lot of trouble with connections today. My question, Delegate Miller, would you or had you considered adding a member that represents charter schools to the work group? I appreciate the bill. I think it's a good bill, but I was wondering about representation based on the conversation that we had at our pre-legislative forum, where it was first indicated that charter schools weren't funded, and then it was indicated that they don't own the property of charter school. But I know as a fact, Sevillersville is still owned by the Frederick County Board of Education. So the information I was provided twice at that meeting was both incorrect. So I was just wondering if there was any consideration to add a member representing charter schools.
Probably not for this work group, only because they don't currently receive CIP funding from the state. So they are, yes, they are funded separately. They have to raise their own funds for CIP. Sevillersville was a unique situation. The county boards of ed have the option, if they are going to close a school, which is what was going to happen at Sevillersville, that they can offer it for first use for the charter schools to be able to have. So it was a unique situation, which was an amazing opportunity for that community. So that's like a whole separate topic that needs to be taken up, because from what Carroll Creek Montessori was saying, they have 2,000 students on their waiting list. So that's a whole separate issue than what's falling under for this. This is mainly, this isn't a solution searching for a problem. This is, we have many problems right now with our CIP budget. And Senator Lewis Young, I just respectfully disagree that this is built on Prince George's County's recommendation. They are absolutely completely different. The new recommendations reflect Frederick County and Frederick County's needs. And right now, we are the fastest growing county. We need new schools. We have schools that are all aging out right around the same time. We have 2 high schools that are still open schools. Anyway, go ahead. So yes,
Delegate Miller.
yeah.
Okay.
Well, actually, Delegate Miller, it's Delegate Weibel again.
Yeah.
The information that I was provided from the IAC, and I can forward that email to you all, is that the capital improvements for charter schools is the same as any other school, that they have to go to the Board of Ed, and that project has to be rated and ranked the same as any other project. Now, maybe they provided me misinformation, but that's what I was told by IAC.
Yeah, no, we can, I mean, they haven't been in the CIPs that before. And Paul Lebo, he could not be here. He had another meeting. So he's not here to answer. I don't know if is the county executive still on?
Let's
But we
do
can
this.
double check that. But no, yeah, that's
Yeah.
a separate issue, Paul, Bill, that I'm happy to do separately.
Delegate Weigel, thank you for that. And Delegate Miller can look at that, and also, yeah, so thank you for that.
All right, thanks. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Delegate Simpson, go ahead.
It's just a point of clarification. So, and I think it's important because I'm getting a couple texts from folks, that. So when we have these bills and we vote them out of this delegation, we hope, because we want this as a county, that the committees will support it, but the rules still apply, right? So if it goes to a committee and they see that there's somebody that may benefit, or people can still send in the letters of saying, I think you need this person on this, or this group on here, all of that still is at play, correct?
Yes. So, generally, when you drop a bill off to a committee, it's no longer your bill. It's the committee's bill. And for example, the committee could take suggestions from Senator Lewis Young and incorporate them. They could take suggestions from Delegate Weigel, or they could take suggestions and remove things, narrow the scope, improve the scope. You have experts on those committees. So yeah, there is an additional layer of filtering that can improve a bill. Absolutely. I think generally the delegation is putting forward an idea, or I should say Delegate Miller is recommending an idea for the delegation to take up, just about brainstorming for funding. As I understand it, they're not trying to usurp the process that's currently in place. I know Delegate Miller reached out to literally everybody in the county council, the school board, the CE, delegation members. I don't want to speak for Delegate Miller, but I know her intent is to not usurp any existing process, but rather let's figure out as a team, how can we address some of these funding concerns and maybe figure out a way to bring more funding in. And you saw that, I think President Yoho sent a letter, and I think she said just that, as long as the intent of this is not to necessarily change, things in place, but rather brainstorm and bring additional people to the table, it sounded like she was in support of that idea. And our office sent that to everybody in the delegation. So I think if anyone has any specific concerns, those can still be brought up in a committee if it gets there. Delegate Miller, is that
group, right?
It's a work group that doesn't require anything other than for people to come together and to discuss ways to address our collective challenge of bringing more funding into the county. Is that right, Delegate Miller?
Completely right.
Okay.
Okay, and I really appreciate you taking time to make sure that clarification.
Yeah. Yep. So outside of what was just said, are there any additional questions or concerns about this work group proposal? Delegate Young, is your hand still up, or is that okay, go ahead for the.
Yeah, I have one more question, and that is, it's my understanding that both the county council and the Board of Ed are in the process of exploring public-private partnerships, and that Prince George's County, when they had a work group, wrote a very extensive report regarding public-private partnerships. So I think it might behoove us to research those efforts and see what those recommendations are, or where our own county is with their research, before we start another work group to explore the same questions.
I think that's the point of the work group. I spoke to Senator Rose Pepe as well, and we're setting up a meeting to learn, from their process. This work group wouldn't have to start in a vacuum or a bubble. We learn from what they did and move forward, but that would be a piece of the work group. And it's not just public-private partnerships, it's all aspects.
Thank you both. Okay. So, look, given the timing, I got to be honest with you, we're running out of time, and we've got to move some product, for lack of a better word. So on this particular issue, and look, given committee assignments, we are very fortunate to have Senator Lewis Young on Triple E, and we're very fortunate to have Delegate Fair and Miller on ways and means that deal with education. So I would imagine our delegation is going to be actively involved in this bill should it move forward, and will have the ability to have their voices strongly heard and you know, intimately involved with the process. So I feel good about that. Delegate Fair, for the final comment on this, and we're gonna take a motion on the bill. Go ahead, sir.
And my comment, and it will build in the motion as well. I think that to the chair's point, we will have ample time to review this bill in committee, ample time to discuss the merits of the bill and be able to look at the pros and cons. I think that Delegate Miller's brought forward a conversation that needs to be discussed constantly with our county. So with that, I would move that we approve for delegation support Delegate Miller's bill.
Second.
There's a motion. There's a second. Any discussion from delegation members on the motion? All right, we're going to vote. Unless we want to do a roll call, we can vote via acclamation. That might be more favorable for some people. But all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, Delegate Miller, for moving that forward. We're going to keep going. The next bill is the Frederick Soil Conservation District. Let me give you the brief background on this bill, and hopefully it just sums up everyone's questions. So in Maryland, there's 25 soil conservation districts. Is that right, Andrew? 25? So every county has one, except for two. Two counties, for some reason, have two. Frederick County had two soil conservation districts that work with farmers. They work with assisting them and keeping up with environmental regulations. It's generally a good thing. We have the Catoctin Soil Conservation District and the Frederick Conservation District. It's important to note that every county's name of their soil conservation district is the name of the county. So for example, it's Allegheny Soil Conservation District, Garrett County Soil Conservation District. So the recommendation today is that we combine the Catoctin Soil Conservation District with the Frederick Soil Conservation District to just have one. This would strengthen that group. It would enable them to save money, time, organization. We solicited support from the Farm Bureau. So the Farm Bureau of Frederick County is in support of this. The Farm Bureau of the state is in support of this. I know there were some concerns from a few farmers about just kind of getting rid of the Catoctin version because it was historically important. But the consensus of that community is that this is a good move to combine the two just for efficiency purposes and actually strengthens them. So are there any concerns or questions from the delegation about this bill? Delegate Kerr, go ahead, sir.
I think we're ready for a motion. I move support.
Okay. There's a motion to support. There's a motion for support, and I think Senator Lewis Young seconded it. Thank you. Any further discussion on the bill? Okay, we'll do this by acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, good job. And just as a recap for everybody, these bills will be submitted obviously as Frederick County delegation bills with the cross file from the Frederick County senators as well. So keep that in mind. All right, the next bill is LR 1998. This is the gaming bill, which would allow credit as payment brought forth by the county council. So look, we submitted some feedback from the AG's office on this. We did get a response, but not substantive on the question that we asked. Just as a recap, in Maryland, currently accepting payment, credit as payment is prohibited for certain games. This just removes that provision so that people could essentially pay for some of these programs with like a debit card or a credit card if they choose. The sole purpose of it is to help volunteer fire companies. And for any of you on this call know, you know, our volunteer fire companies are top shelf, but, you know, they need support. They don't have money coming in. They have to have these creative programs to raise funds. We worked with them with the liquor board and holding events and whatnot. But, you know, we heard from our our delegation attorney, with the change with this bill, it would be legal, you know, is that Dwayne, are you on the call?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, so is it your understanding that with the change in this legislation that it would be legal and compliant? Is that your take on it?
Yes, the law as it currently is written prohibits credit being used, but this bill would change the law so that it would be an exception for fire companies.
Okay. All right, any Senator Lewis Young, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question. Are we changing state law? In which case, shouldn't this be a statewide bill to make an exception for fire companies? Or are we doing a delegation bill that makes an exception for Frederick County?
You're
Great
changing
question.
the state law to change the rules specifically in Frederick County. This is how a lot of county bills are written. That's how the state's legal system is structured. You're changing the state law though.
Okay, so the state law would remain as it is with a carve out for Frederick County.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Well, I always said Frederick was special, so. Thank you for that question, Senator Lewis Young. Any other questions or comments from the delegation on this bill? So my final thought on it is, look, you know, I'm not huge on gambling per se, but I am a huge supporter of our volunteer fire companies. And if this helps them somehow, then I think we should do our best to try and do just that. And I think that is the intent of the bill. Again, this is going to go to Ways and Means. And if the powers to be on that committee or Triple E or whomever has some questions or concerns, or there needs to be some tweaks, I'm quite confident those committees will make those adjustments to make it work. So with that, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion on this bill.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we support the bill, move favorable.
Second.
I'll second. Oh.
Okay, thank you, Senator Reedy. And I guess a second from Senator Fulton.
Yeah.
Any discussion or any further discussion? All right, we're going to go ahead and vote via acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? Okay. All right, congratulations, Councilman Carter. Thank you for bringing that forward. We'll keep you posted. The last bill on the agenda, and oh, by the way, we don't have Congressman Trone today. We had a scheduling conflict. We're going to get him on probably next meeting or the following. So this is our last item on the agenda for today. It's the Truancy Reduction Pilot Program. I believe we reached out to the judiciary on this bill, and they did confirm that the funding comes from grant programs. So that was one of the questions that was had. But are any further comments or questions on this bill from the delegation? All right. Delegate Fair, you have a question or comment, or you want to move a motion?
I would like to move a motion and just briefly state that I really want to thank everybody, especially Senator Lewis Young, and now Judge Raymond Brubaker, who has worked so incredibly diligently on getting all the answers to all of our colleagues. And I move a motion that we support this initiative. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Fair. The motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Senator Lewis Young, second. Any further discussion? All right. We're going to vote via acclamation. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, congratulations, Senator Lewis Young. Thanks for bringing that forward into Circuit Court Raymond. We appreciate you for bringing that forward as well. All right, so that concludes the business end of our meeting. As always, we're going to open it up to any comments from any of the stakeholders on the call. So if there are any, we'd love to hear from you. Looks like Mr. Ludwig, go ahead, sir.
Hi, this is Rick Ludwig. I'm with the Liberty Town Community Civic Association. I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the meeting, so I don't know what you decided to do about the priority letter. We wanted to make sure that there was language in there that supported additional funding for the Liberty Town sidewalks, which all of you have supported in the past. And right now they have completed a 30% design for the Maryland 26 portion. And that funding has been exhausted and there's no more funding available. And so we need your support to try to get additional funding from SHA to continue the design efforts.
So Rick, let me update you. Hopefully this will help you. So we discussed Liberty Town actually in depth. You're going to be included in the letter, and I think we're going to try and strengthen the language. I know you sent something into our office about it, but we're going to strengthen the language to ensure that Liberty Town is taken care of.
Thank you very much. That's very important to us. I very much appreciate it, and thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate your advocacy on the issue. Mayor Brown, go ahead, sir.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Good morning. I just wanted to quickly thank you, Delegate Miller, and thank the whole delegation for supporting the work group idea. I think it's a great idea that we've been following here because honestly, we do have some very fundamental process issues here in Frederick County with school construction. I think, the county and the school board do a lot of things right and do the best with the resources they have. But, fundamentally, we just are not making progress on the significant issue of being the fastest growing county, and our schools are aging out much even quicker than that. I find it almost impossible when I look at just where the financials are to see how Frederick County could ever even build another high school with the funding available. The resources are just not there. And then, we have built elementary schools at sort of a record pace. However, when you look at the county, we're still over 100% capacity in our elementary school, despite hundreds of millions of dollars of investment to build elementary schools. So clearly, all the way around, we just have a lot of problems. There's also a significant issue with community involvement in these processes of when schools are discussed, design is discussed, and priorities are made. We obviously have an advocacy group that I'm sure you all have heard about, and they've spent significant resources trying to understand this process from start to finish, and there's still a lot of discrepancy there on how it's done. And again, I think the county and school board at this stage do the best with the resources they have available. And it's going to come down to needing more resources. But I think a work group to really study this issue inside and out and figure out where we should be would be a good one. And I think them looking to other areas that we know are different than us and some of their recommendations is certainly fine. And I'm sure something that they would dive into. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. And obviously, that the delegation, is in support of Brunswick and in Middletown and similar challenges in schools throughout the county. And I think that was the intent behind the work group is we just want more people talking about it and seeing what we can do to help the situation. And we look forward to working collaboratively with our partners, the school board and the council and the county executive, just to kind of move the needle forward. So thank you for your advocacy, and hopefully your constituents know how hard you work on it. So thanks again. Any other comments for the good of the order from our stakeholders? Okay. Any parting words from the delegation? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Senator Folden, motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, everybody have a wonderful weekend.
Mr. Chair, just a quick question. Is
Yes.
Congressman Trone speaking today, or was that?
He's not, so he had to reschedule. We're going to get him on the agenda either the next week or the following. And I think as far as our business, we're probably going to have our last meeting next Friday. And then we'll meet only as needed going forward. So you guys will get a nice break from the delegation. But
Delegate, are you taking comments from the public? It's Cap Kaplowitz.
Yeah, go ahead. We were, but go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, delegation. Thank you for all the work you're doing. I expect to see some of you on Tuesday. I'm coming in with the Maryland Association of Community Colleges. I'm glad to see that you're working on these highway projects. The major highway capacity expansion projects, impact assessments and mitigation plans, SB 681 and House Bill 836. I hope that you'll take a close look at those. They're being supported by the Coalition for Smarter Growth. I have two bills that I'm personally interested in that affect my daughter-in-law, who is a Montgomery County firefighter captain. The first one is workers' compensation, occupational disease presumptions, first responders. It is HB 584, will be coming up at the end of February. The cross-filed with Senate Bill 476. I hope you'll support that. The other bill is Commission to Advance Lithium-Ion Battery Safety in Maryland. That is HB 468 and SB 532. Lithium-ion batteries, when they burn, give off sulfuric acid. They damage the lungs. They are very, very difficult for the fire department to deal with. And I hope that you'll look closely at that bill to set up a commission to discover what we can do so that firefighters are not adversely affected when they are fighting a fire that involves a lithium-ion battery. But I hope I'll see you all on Tuesday, one of many visits that I'll make. I hope you all continue your good work. I've submitted testimony on somewhere between 25 and 30 bills, mostly in support. There are a couple of bills that I've submitted opposition, and there's one bill from Senator Reedy that I submitted a favorable, but I wanted to see some amendments to it. So you will continue to see my name pop up on many of your bills. I'm submitting written testimony, and basically every day I'm submitting testimony for you. So please keep up the good work. Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, sir. And with that, hope you all have a safe weekend, and we'll see you on